How are you?
Good.
All right, let's get this party started. Good morning, everyone. I'm Linda Arquette. I'm your Chief Executive Officer here at the Kent Washington Association of Realtors. And welcome to this part 2 of RPR. And the third class will be held on Thursday, August 24th. And that's going to be based on finding sellers for today and tomorrow. Real estate farming is your key to success. I love RPR. It's a great member benefit. I hope that, are you using it? Raise your hand if you're using it. Great, it's wonderful. So I'm really happy that Rhonda Mesenbourg is here to instruct this 3-part series. We appreciate her doing this for Kent Washington Association of Realtors. She's certified to teach RPR. And I also want to introduce Kristen Dozois with HarborOne Mortgage. She is here to sponsor this event. So Kristen, come on up.
Okay.
You were.
I get to come up to the projector light.
Yes, you do. Welcome.
Hi everyone. I'll keep it short because I know you have a lot of good material to cover, but I'm sponsoring the lunch today. My name is Kristen Dozois. I'm from HarborOne Mortgage. We're a subsidiary of HarborOne Bank. So if you're familiar, we have branches throughout the state, East Greenwich, all the way to East Providence. My office is in Wakefield. We have a couple mortgage satellite offices throughout the state. So as I mentioned, we're a subsidiary of HarborOne Bank. So one of the good things about us is we've got the funding of a big bank, so we've got the money, but we're also a mid-sized company where we have a lot of, all our underwriting is done in-house. So my underwriter, my processor is right in Warwick, so it makes it easier. We're not sending things out, so when you have your clients that we work with for mortgages, things move pretty smoothly. I can kind of talk to everyone very quickly, get to them easily, which is nice. We offer all kinds of programs from Rhode Island Housing, which is very popular right now because of all the free money they're giving for the grants, up to VA, FHA. One of our most popular are our jumbo loans. We do have good competitive rates on that and good programs. We're good at working outside the box. So it's just when you send your client to us, we have a whole array of products we can help them with. So I have some information over there. Just goes over a couple of our programs. We do have some specialized ones with no money down, which is always popular for a lot of the first-time home buyers. We have a 3% down, which is nice as well for first-time home buyers. And then some information on the jumbo and different programs that we run. So I like to be a resource to my realtors. Sometimes, I don't know everything about your job, and I know you kind of learn a little bit about ours enough to instruct and educate your clients, but I'm always good to be a resource. Whether it's a deal you're working on that doesn't even involve me, feel free to reach out. I have realtors that'll say, hey, I know I'm not working with you on this, but I just kind of need your feedback because I don't really know the mortgage originator on this loan, and they'll reach out a lot. So I'm always happy to be a resource for any questions that you guys have. So yeah, so feel free. We have some glasses, or I have some glasses over there for water or beer or mudslides, as we say, and some little goodies in there for you guys to take with you. And then most importantly is my card. So if you have any questions with anything mortgage related, just even if you're thinking of something and you're like, hey, I met you at one of the lunch and learns, I just have a random mortgage question, feel free to call, shoot me an email, a text. I'm always happy to answer and be a resource for any of that, okay? So I'll let you guys enjoy, and thanks, and enjoy your lunches.
Thank you.
Well, hi everyone. So who was here for last month's class? A couple of you? Okay, great. So last month we just talked about doing some digging and finding some information about properties through RPR, and I was really happy to see everybody's hand that raised that said that they're using it, because it's a great tool for us as realtors. It doesn't cost us anything. It's part of our membership through the Rhode Island Association of Realtors. It is free for you to use, and it's really comprehensive, and it does so many things. So today we're going to be talking about doing a CMA through RPR versus doing a CMA through the MLS system. The reports are really, really hearty. They have a lot of great information. And true story, I actually went on a listing appointment a couple of weeks ago in an area that I am familiar with because it's where I'm from. It's in Connecticut. About an hour drive for me, which is typically kind of the furthest I will go for a listing that I feel that I can service it properly. And the homeowner was speaking to one other agent. It was the agent that sold her the house back in 17, who actually lives in that town. And so it was me and this other agent that she was speaking to, and I went hand in hand with the CMA from RPR along with my marketing plan, and she hired us on the spot, my team. She said, I'm so impressed with this report, and the other agent just had nothing like it. And you know, they were just very data-driven people, and she's like, the amount of data that was in there really just made us feel like you know what you're doing, you understand the market, you understand everything that goes into, you know, pricing our home. So it really was a great tool and something that can really help you win listings because it just has so much great data. So we're going to talk about that process. I know we only have an hour today, so it's going to be kind of a shortened version of it, but you're going to get the gist and you're going to get all the data points, and then I just urge you to go in and just play with it. You can't break it. Go in and play with it. You can always reach out to me. I'll make sure everybody has my contact information. I'm always happy to, you know, talk about it and to help agents through the process. Okay, so just really quickly, I know a lot of you are already using RPR, but you know, RPR in a nutshell, it's NAR's technology company. It's a wholly owned subsidiary. It's a national parcel-centric database for residential and commercial properties. So you can use RPR even for commercial properties. It's built exclusively for realtors. I already talked about there's no extra charge. And the cool thing about it is there's no consumer access. So your consumers can't get into this program without you. So you are that gateway for them to be able to get this information, which really just provides and adds to your value proposition as a realtor for them. So again, you know, where does RPR fit into your business model? Is you're at the center, obviously, of your business, and these are all the tools that we have, right? We have MLS, you have your broker, the community of realtors, which is so important. We're all from different companies, we're all independent contractors, we all have our own business, but one of the really cool things about our community of realtors is we share information. And we want to share information, and we want all of us to be able to raise this industry up together and really serve our clients. And so lean into that. You're not on an island alone. Reach out to your fellow realtors, and also make sure that you're that realtor towards others as well to be collaborative. There's enough business for all of us to have the business that we want to. And then the National Association of Realtors. So we're going to kind of skip around a little bit. I'm not going to get too much into the mobile app. Just know there is one. So RPR is also mobile. You can go to the app store of your phone. You can download it. And then there's some of the tools. It doesn't have all of the functionality on it that you will on the desktop version, but just know it's there. Download it and explore it, you know, when you can. We're going to talk about just the different valuation methodologies as far as creating that CMA. We're going to talk about the refined value tool. We're going to walk through doing a CMA. I'm going to jump on the computer over there and just do a little demo for us once we get through the slides. And then the reporting aspect of it, we're going to just create a valuation workbook, which is super easy to do. There's some great reports in here. All right, so I'm just going to go by the mobile app here. Okay, so 3 pricing tools in RPR. And if anyone has questions, absolutely stop me. You don't have to wait for me to ask for questions. Just raise your hand or just, you know, speak up. We're a small enough crowd here. So definitely if you have a question, just stop me, okay? So we're going to talk about refining the RVM. We're going to talk about the CMA, which is why we're here, and the seller's report. And then we're going to talk about the sales comparison analysis. So these are the 2 different analysis that you can do within RPR. The sales comparison analysis, it is basically the same, only it has a lot more information on it. So one of them is going to be a little bit more simple approach. You're going to go through the same steps. This one is going to just have a little bit more meat on it as far as what you're really comparing for that property that you're doing an analysis on. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And then the different reports that are going to go for each one. Okay, so let's just talk a couple of definitions here. So the AVM, and these are things you will see within RPR, is the automated valuation model. And that's a value estimate calculated using public records only. The RVM, which is the Realtors valuation model, that is going to also include MLS, active, sold, and off-market data. Okay, so that one's going to get into a lot of the AVM, right? If you know on our listing agreements, we check off whether we want to allow AVM on our listings, right? Does everybody that's familiar? Yep. So like that's like the automated values of like what Zillow says about your house, right? What Realtor.com, right? That automated value is they're just looking at public records and they're just kind of calculating stuff. The RVM is going to actually get into MLS data, okay? And it's going to get in there and it's going to really use those actives, those solds, and the off-market data. It has the highest accuracy, and the cool thing about it is it's refinable. So, you know, as we all know, right, appraisals, us doing a CMA, looking at comps, coming up with market value, it's subjective, right? It's very subjective. We're using our expertise. We are analyzing data and giving our seller or potential seller the best value that we possibly can come up with based on the data that's available to us. So you may look at this at the RVM that is assigned to this property, and you may not agree with it as you're looking at the comps. You might say, you know what, I think that this comp should really be weighed more heavily than that comp. So you're actually able to refine that value if you don't have to just take what it says. You're gonna put your expertise in there to make sure that it really reflects what you feel is that market value for that property. Does that make sense? It's cool that you can do that. Okay, so we're going to talk about the three types of AVMs just very quickly. There's hedonic, indexed, and blended. So a hedonic AVM, it treats the property as a bundle of valued characteristics. So bedrooms, bathrooms, the sum of which determines the property's estimated market value as compared with other properties. Okay, so this is like one of the ways that those sites are calculating that AVM. Index AVMs, it predicts valuation based on sales trends in a geographic area. So specific aspects of the subject property are not considered except to select a number of similar properties. So it's selecting the similar properties based on beds, baths, square footage, etc. But it's predicting the valuation based on the sales trends within that geographic. And what RPR does is it uses the blended, right? So RPR is blending those together. It combines sales trends and specific property details. It uses statistics to show the accuracy of predictions for both, and it gives each value a weight according to the provider's proprietary formula. Okay, so this is just giving you like just a little visual here. And we can make these slides available too if you would like them. So the limitations of the AVM assumes a structure exists, assumes average condition. The stats can't always keep up with it, and usually those are the advertiser sites. So the RVM, Realtors Valuation Model, it's blended, it's realtor owned, and again, it's just a starting point. And then you're gonna go through, it's gonna show you what it is. You can always click on these information. Any place you see in RPR that has a little information, you can click on it and you can get a little more in-depth on what that value is and how it's derived. So that way you fully understand it. And when you're sitting in front of your seller and they say, oh, I don't understand that, what is that? You can explain to them exactly what it is. So it's very intuitive. So if you also have noticed, there's always those little stars, and sometimes they're 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 highlighted, and that's the confidence score. So the confidence score, when you are looking at the RVM of the property that you're looking up, based on how many stars are filled in, that's the confidence score for that RVM, and this is just what it means. So if you see this one is 5, so it says the sales price is likely within 10% of that value, right? If it's 4, it's within 15%. If there's only 1 star, it's within 30%. So maybe there's not a lot of sales data for that, right? So in that case, you may really need to kind of pull your expertise out and really look closely at those comps to determine the value. But you can utilize that confidence score to just kind of get an idea of that RVM and how accurate it is.
How come some houses have no RVM whatsoever?
So I know that, so I think in there, they did talk about that actually when I went through the certification, and there is a reason that there isn't. I don't know if it's just that maybe for that area, or maybe they don't have enough data to be able to pull it. When I show you the demo, when you look at that RBM, it wants to keep those comps within a really tight range, so it's not pulling things from really far out. So it could be that there's just not enough data for them to actually feel confident at all that they're providing an accurate.
Right, I'd rather have that than no.
Exactly, right? Yeah, exactly. So then we're gonna go through, and we're also gonna talk about how to refine value for all of these. You can do it a certain number of ways. You can refine value just by doing the basic facts. You can refine value by adding in improvements that were made to the property. You can refine value by saying this property needs improvements, right? The property needs to be renovated, it needs a new kitchen, it needs new bathrooms, etc. Or you can also do it by market conditions, which I really like this, right? So like right now we're in a seller's market because of the low inventory. So you can refine value by going in and saying, you know what, this is a hot seller's market, and it's gonna change that value, right? When it gives you that that value, the RBN, it's assuming that we're in an average market right now, right? And we're not. So you definitely want to come in and you want to change that because you want it to be reflective that we're in a hot market right now for sellers. And that's going to change that RBN for you, which is very cool.
Excuse me. I'm going to talk about the value that you do put on something, because that's where I sometimes get confused is, yeah, there's an updated bathroom, an updated kitchen, but what value do I put on that?
Yep. Absolutely. So we have this comparative analysis. So in here, you're not actually applying that value, but when we do that detailed report, that's where it wants you to apply values. And I'm going to talk about maybe where you can find some of those numbers for sure. So this is just the comparative analysis. So how is the CMA result calculated? So it's going to give you a range of values. So when you do the CMA, at the end of it, you're going to, oh my God, to get fired. Okay, don't tell Linda.
There's a little ribbon there.
So how is the CMA result calculated? So you're going to get a range. It's going to give you a low range, it's going to give you a high range, and then it's going to give you the average. Okay, so then that way too, when you're having that initial conversation, or say, you know what, you're talking to somebody who says that they're thinking about selling and they just want to know a little bit more about their property value, you can create a report for them and send it to them, and it's going to have a range. So that way you're not locked in saying, I'm going to list your house for exactly this, because right, maybe you haven't been in the house yet. Right, so you can say, listen, I'm going to send you this report. This is sort of the range of value where your home likely would be listed at. But you know what? I actually would like to get in and take a walk through. So just make sure that all of my data is correct. And then we can really sit down and talk the numbers and find exactly what number you're comfortable with, I'm comfortable with, that we likely think a buyer is going to pay for your property. So this just gives you that nice range. So that way it's that nice conversation starter with somebody. And so how does it get that number, that range? So the lowest price per square foot is multiplied by the number of square feet in the subject property. So it's going to look at all of the comps that are selected, and these are comps. It's going to show you a bunch of comps that you can choose. If something just sold in MLS and it's not included, there's a way to go in and add those MLS numbers to make sure that property is included in your CMA. But for all of your comps, it's going to take the lowest price per square foot, and it's going to multiply it by the square feet in your property. It's going to take the highest, multiply it, that's going to give you your low and high, and then it's just going to average those numbers together. Okay, and so again, right, you're going to use your expertise in there to make sure that those right comps. Now I know here in Rhode Island we don't use price per square foot usually to determine value. That's usually not the number, the right, but in this case that's just how it's calculating. So again, it's just that it can be anywhere in between that. It's just that starting points for that conversation. So how are the adjustments calculated? So in this comparative analysis, instead of putting in how much a new bathroom would cost, how much a kitchen would cost, it has this handy little slider that you can just slide the subject property. You can slide the comp property. Either it's worse than the subject, it's a little bit better. And every tick, it'll start in the middle. Every tick up adds 5%. Every tick down takes away 5% up to 20%. Okay, so you're able to just adjust them without, maybe you don't know how much the new kitchen's gonna cost, but you can say, you know what, this property is slightly better, or this property is way better, this property is way worse, or it's just slightly worse. So it's a little bit more of a streamline. So again, each comp's price per square foot is multiplied by the subject property's living area. The results for all of your selected comps are average, yielding the subject property estimate. And I'm gonna show you how to do that. So sales comparison analysis. So now this is the one that we're gonna dive in a little bit deeper to. So it starts with the comp's value, sold price, list price, estimated value. Any adjustments are directly added or subtracted from the comp's value. So yes, in this case, you may need to know, like, what does a new kitchen cost, or how much weight does an appraiser give to an updated kitchen? So the ways to get those, so there was a class I took a couple of years ago, and it was called pricing strategies, or certified pricing strategies. And in that class, we talked about this, and it gave you the values based on, like, I think they were based on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the value that they applied to those improvements. And now this was dated this was pre-COVID. This was probably back in maybe 2019 that I took that class. And so for a while, I would just carry those. I had my notebook of all of that material, and I would use those. So I would go in and say, okay, for an extra bedroom, how much value is an appraiser adding, right? And I would go in and I would just like add, and I would do the additions or the subtractions to help me come up with that number. So in essence, if you don't have those numbers, if you know an appraiser, right? If you have an appraiser, I would talk with them and say, listen, if I'm going to use this tool, I would like to know how much at this point now, right? My data is old, so I usually use the slider. But in these days, how much are you adding for, a bedroom, a bathroom, a half bathroom, a garage? Like, garage is big, right? And Lord knows it costs, I don't know what, $50,000, I think, at this point to add a garage. I know my one bay garage cost $30,000 back in 2010, so it's probably around $50,000 now. But the appraiser is only going to give it maybe $10,000 on the appraisal, right? So you're not going to get maybe what you spent on it. It's going to be weighted differently for the appraiser, and that's the numbers you want. You want to know what the value is that's going to add. Now, if you picked up all of those handouts over there, I downloaded this for you. So this is for Hartford. It only allowed like certain municipalities for me to choose from to be able to print off. They did have Boston and they did have Hartford. I thought Boston's numbers probably wouldn't be like, things are at a premium in Boston, so I went with doing the Hartford ones. But it just gives you a little bit of an idea of cost versus value for all of these renovations. So this may be a starting point for you, and then also absolutely talk with one of your preferred appraisers, because I'm sure they'd be happy to share that information. Oh my goodness. All right. Kathleen, I'm just going to go over here. No worries. It's not like the American flag, but still. No worries. Okay. So the value of each comp is multiplied by its given weighted percentage, and the result is a total of the weighted comp's value. Okay, so you're going to make those adjustments, and then it's going to do those calculations, and it's going to change that number on your subject property accordingly. And the cool thing, about it too, is that it just gets a little bit more, precise as far as instead of doing the slider. But again, it's important just for you to really understand what you're giving it, because you don't only want to do it halfway, because then your numbers is going to be off. But it can be a very, very valuable tool. So how are the adjustments calculated? Weight your comps by applying a percentage based on how similar the comp property is to the subject property. If you had to make a lot of adjustments to a comp property, it should be given a lower percentage. The more alike the comp is to the subject property, the higher the property should be weighted. Give it a higher percentage. The total weighting must equal 100%. So you can just say auto weight. So if you do auto weight, the system is going to weigh your comps based on adjustments that you've made. If you weigh equally, you can have the system weigh the comps all the same. So you have a little bit of a choice there. So you can this program is here, and you can really get in depth with creating these seller reports and the valuation workbooks. Okay, so we're gonna use our own. Okay. So I'm gonna just come over here now, and I'm gonna jump on the computer. Any questions so far?
I do have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned that in Rhode Island we don't use price per square foot.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I usually use.
Do you?
What does
Okay.
everybody else
Which is
use?
okay. That's fine.
I'm
That's
just
okay.
curious.
I mean, typically for me, I really am just looking at the sales price. I'm not really calculating what, price per square foot.
Okay.
I mean, you certainly can, but then you really need to understand the differences of the renovations in that house. You really need to understand that if you're using it.
Okay.
Because if somebody's building a house and they're putting, they spent $500 a square foot to build that house.
Mhm.
And somebody paid $300 a square foot, those numbers are gonna be very, very different, so you really need to understand the value of the improvements in that property. So typically, right, I just rely more on the purchase price and saying like, this house is super renovated, it's selling for this price versus this price, instead of getting that down and dirty. But if you're really adding things in and out, but you really need to understand because not all kitchens are created the same, right? Somebody can put an IKEA kitchen in, which is awesome,
Yeah.
but somebody can really go all out and, spend $200,000 updating their kitchen.
Right.
So those two updated kitchens are not going to, the value is not going to be the same.
Okay.
So if somebody has in mind a property that we can just kind of throw in here and look up, if you want to, otherwise I can come up with one.
Like an active one?
I would come up with something off market. Remember my password here. So like say that you're going on you're doing a listing presentation for somebody and they just want to know, what you think about the value of their home is. So if anybody has one, otherwise I can throw. Okay, great.
11.
Well, then let me get in here. I'm gonna get into RPR right
I
now.
have a quick question. Can you do a Massachusetts property on this too?
You can, so RPR is national.
Okay.
So, yep, so I did the Connecticut property right through
Okay.
here as well. So you can put any property.
I see, I tried to do that with Connecticut listing and it wouldn't let me.
Really? I may have, well, maybe I did it out of the Connecticut MLS perhaps, because I'm licensed there.
I don't believe if you're not licensed in the state,
Oh, so
you
maybe,
can't do
maybe
it.
you have to do it directly through that MLS.
So I can go through Mass MLS and go on this?
You should be
Okay,
able to,
alright.
yeah, they should have it as an
But
option.
if you're not
for
licensed in
MLS.
Connecticut, then you can't do Connecticut.
No, I know, but I'm licensed in Mass.
Okay, so, let's get on with this. All right, what was the property?
11. Bud, B-U-D.
Mhm.
Browning. Circle. In Wakefield, Rhode Island.
Okay. We'll bring it up for you. Did I spell that right?
B-R, like the color, I-N-G.
Yep, I got that. Oh, there we go. So, as you can see, once you start typing in the address, it should start pulling up automatically for you, so then you can just click on it. Okay. So this is what it's going to bring up for you. It's going to bring up this property information screen, and this is what we talked a lot about last month, and going through and really kind of being able to do some research on the property and all of the information that's available to it. And today we're gonna talk about this CMA. So when you bring the screen up, it's off-market property. It's gonna tell you what it last closed for. So it closed in 2016. This is the last close price for it. It's gonna give you the details of it. Now here is the RVM here that has been calculated. So if you see here, this has, it was updated on 8/1/2023. So anything that may have happened since then is not included in that value, but every time you come in here, you will see that this date is gonna change, because it's constantly going in and it's constantly updating these, it's constantly taking into effect what's happening in our MLS system. So this number is gonna change based on the date. So you might come in here again and you're gonna see that now it's 8/10 or something, okay? Here's the confidence score over here. This is the range that it's giving it, so it's giving it this range. It's also telling you the month change. So, right, so look at that. We're starting to see that some properties, sometimes the change is actually coming down a little bit in the market based on sales price, but it's still up by almost 5% from the year. So you can click it again. You can click on all of these little information circles, and again, it's going to remind you how it's coming up with that and what that is. So you can click on View Details, and View Details, it's going to tell you, so in this property here, so as you can see, there's not a lot. So now if there was a lot of activity around here, so that's the 111 Bud Browning, this really here is telling you that 591 Camp Fuller Road. So this is one of the properties that it was using in with to get that value. Now, like in this area here, there's not always a lot of stuff that's going on. If you were in a more dense area, say Warwick, East Greenwich, there's going to be a lot more of these squares and circles. There's going to be a lot more data that's there because, like I said earlier, it wants to keep it in as close as possible. It's not,
So is that a problem with an appraiser? You know, there's not enough properties around there.
yeah, and I have seen, you know, honestly, again, right, there, at some point we have to also use our expertise as realtors, right? This is just, you know, it still is a system. I mean, I have seen properties, I've had properties in the past where there's just not a lot of data, and they might actually go out of the area if they have to. They'll, you know, but they'll try to keep it like the same sort of community, right? They'll try to keep as many things as possible. Sometimes you might have a waterfront property that, if there's not a lot of other ones, they might go to another town and pull another waterfront property just to try to make some sort of comparison. Because they have the same problem, right? If there's no comp, so they have to do their job as well. So sometimes you have to go a little sideways.
So how can I have a confidence score of 5 when there's only one property?
Yeah, and I agree with you on this, right? So it's based on the outcomes of multiple automated valuation models. A high score indicates the models yield similar estimated values for this property. So you can always click on there to learn a little bit more about it. But
But as long as, how can the confidence score be that high? Only one property.
Well-
Confident that they're like that one.
yeah, and if you're looking at the price, right, so this one here, this one closed at 2.8 million. They're not saying the other one's worth they're not valuing it as a waterfront. This one closed at 2.8. They're giving this one a score of 1.06, right? So they're not saying, like, listen, like it's same area, but they are taking into effect that, you know, the other one is waterfront, and that one closed at 2.8.
Right.
So, you know, again, I understand there's not a lot of properties in there, and I'm a little surprised that it's a 5 as well, because there's only one property, but I feel a little better that they didn't say that it was worth $2 million or $2.5 million. So it is taking into effect the differences between.
So are they using more than one or just one property?
So, usually, so I'm gonna show you, when we go into the CMA, it looks to me like they're only using this one, but yet when we go into the CMA, when we get to that screen, when it shows you some comps, it will tell you if it was used in the RVM. So it will have a little star and say this was used in the RVM. So we'll have to see, maybe there were others that used, or maybe this is the only one that says it for. Okay. So again, we did this last time. You can look at market trends. Under refined value, this is where we had that screen up where you can come in here and you can make changes to this. So if you notice that this property says, you know, it's 3 bedrooms and 2 full baths and 1 half, and when speaking with the seller and they say, you know, hey, you know, we actually have 3 full baths and not 2 full baths, this is where you can come in here and you can, you know, you can make that change. Where's it jumping into?
Is the numbers lock on?
Oh, maybe that. Thank you. I don't have one of those on my thing. Okay, so if I say update facts, okay, so now you can see that I said this had 3 bathrooms, 3 full bathrooms. It changed the value a little bit, right? So you can use it and so you can say, okay, I'm gonna do that. And then you can come down here, you can add any home improvements. Now again, just be careful if you're adding home improvements in here, because you're also gonna wanna make sure that you're comparing it to other properties that are like kind. So, you know, typically, you know, for instance, I went to an open house in Westerly last week to a property that needed a complete renovation. Now, that one was listed on the market. So when I looked at it, right, so you have to be careful. So say you're using, say your buyer wants to make an offer on a property and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna go through this, I'm gonna kind of create a little thing, we're gonna look at what the value is. In that case, you wanna be careful because that property was listed at $325 and it was priced really well. After doing the walkthrough with the buyers, we figured that it probably needs about $200,000 worth of updates to it. So in that case, you don't want to put it in here because then it's going to reduce that value by $200,000 and it was already priced properly, right? So you want to you just kind of, again, you want to kind of use your own common sense in that case. We're not going to say it needs another $200,000 in updates because the price is already accounting for it, okay? So again, you're going to use that if you're assuming that all of the properties that you're valuing are all on the same playing field. So, but one of the cool slider I love is this one down here by market and home condition. So instead of doing this up here, you can also come down here and you can say, you know what, we're kind of in a hot seller's market right now. And you can say, but you know what, you can then say, you know what, this home needs a lot of renovating here. And again, making sure that you understand what you're looking at, right? If you know the property's already on the market and it's already priced right, just be careful with these sliders, okay? And then you can also do that for the interior, you can do it for the lot size. And so what it's gonna do is it's gonna start adding and subtracting value. And so it's gonna start moving that number. So you have a lot of power in here, but just make sure you use it and you really understand what you're clicking on.
Do you do it based on the property in and of itself or compared to the comparables? Like, is the condition good compared to what's out there? Is it good just in general?
Yeah, so I think it's compared to what's out there. So what you're saying is that this property, based on the average of all the other comps, this property's interior is either a little bit inferior, maybe it's a little bit better. So you're using it like kind of assuming that everything else is on a playing field.
So we're kind of doing it in reverse of what an appraisal would do, where we never change the subject property, we just add and subtract the
Yeah,
comps.
exactly. In this one, you're doing it to the
subject.
subject property. Yes, yep. So this one, you're doing it to the subject property, exactly. And then when you do that, the comparative analysis, that's when you're gonna do it to the comps.
More like appraisal.
Exactly.
How does the location fall into place? Let's say it's not a waterfront property, but it's within 2 miles.
So in that one, I think you can I would maybe use the view button there, right? I would maybe use the view, because that's not a category here,
Okay.
but I would then maybe use the view as that's that factor.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna put these all back here.
I mean, there's no perfect system. I mean,
There's no perfect
end of the
system,
day, you're just
and
trying to
that's
get
where we come in.
You're just
That's
trying to
where
get it
we come.
close enough where
Right.
if someone's interested,
That's right.
what's a dock worth to someone? 0 to 200. I mean, it just
Exactly.
depends on-
0 to somebody who doesn't have a boat, it doesn't
Right,
really want
right.
one,
So you're
right?
just trying to get it, you're just trying to at least get it in the ballpark. where-
Exactly, and let's be, let's be real, right? If there was just a one button you can do and print, then we are no longer needed,
Yeah.
right? So you have to apply your expertise, your knowledge, and it's to open up that conversation and just to help the sellers understand, or the buyers that are maybe making an offer on a property, to help them just to understand where values are, right? Because we all work with sellers who think their properties are worth way more than maybe they are, especially as the market's starting to change a little bit, right? And we also have the buyers that now think everything fell off a cliff and they don't wanna pay for properties, they wanna get that deal, and helping them truly understand so that way they can win. So the buyer who really want that property, please listen to me so I can help you try to win that offer. It's not always about just throwing a lowball offer in these days still, right? We are not there yet, right? We are not, hopefully we don't ever get there. And for a seller, it's I want to set you up to sell your property and not have your property just sit on the market and get stale. So these are just tools to help you have those conversations with them. Okay, so I'm gonna just put all these back, let's just kind of put these all back right now, and then we're gonna go back up here down to CMA, because I know it's already quarter after.
Don't worry about it, it's
Okay.
not on a set.
Okay, I know, I'm sure everybody's busy, but okay, thank you Kathleen. Okay, so when you come under the CMA tab now here, again, it's going to give you some information here at the top, and this right here is where you're gonna choose the comparative analysis or the sales comparison analysis. So if you're like, I don't remember what the difference is, you can just click on this little button, and it's going to tell you, you can even watch a little video on it. You can also click on the little information, and it's going to give you a little simpler explanation of what that is. Now, in a nutshell, the comparative analysis, this is where we're gonna choose comps, and we're gonna use that slider scale. And the sales comparison analysis, it's a little more detailed, and that's where you're gonna add the value for the differences between the comps and the subject property. Okay? So you can choose accordingly to which one you wanna do. So the first thing, now the way the system works is it's gonna make you go through all the steps. You can't get to the next step unless you do the first one. So the first one is just asking you again to confirm your home facts. So in here, you can put in, we said that we changed the bathrooms, right? I'm gonna put it back. What if that's so? Right there. Okay, so I'm gonna say that all of this information is correct. You can make any of your changes, and then you can say confirm, and now it's gonna open up the next. So here we're gonna do, like, we're gonna find some comps here. So it gives you the map view. Now you can, as you lessen away as you scroll out on the map, it's going to open up that area. So wherever that map is honed in, that's really is where it's gonna search for you. So if you're finding yourself short on comps, you can just zoom out a little bit, and it's gonna bring up some other properties. So here you can say, you can choose what kind of property you're looking for. You can look to see, you can include expireds if you want as well. You can say how long things are off the market for. Then down here you can say bedrooms. So if this one has 3 bedrooms, you can say I'm looking for anything from, I'm not using that number pad. You can say anything from 2 to 4 bathrooms. You can say I'm looking for anything 2 and up. You can do it on living area square footage, and that is going to select the comps. So there's other things, you can do price range, right? If you're like, you know what, I know that this house is probably gonna be somewhere between 6 and 7, you can choose comps between 5 and 8, just to kind of bring them in, so you're not getting everything that's sold maybe in the 3s if it's really just not, right, it's really not a true comp. And then you're gonna hit the search button, and so then it's going to show you, again, based on the map. So here is our, this is the subject property, 11 Bud Browning. And then you can click on, so 678 Kettle Pond, right now that's pending. And then you have this one here, 925, over also at 205 Kettle Pond. And then it's also bringing in this one here on Commodore Oliver Hazard area. So then when you scroll down here a little bit, now if you notice, the one that it was showing us before is actually, let's see, where was that one?
It was on Camp Fuller.
It was on Camp Fuller. Hold on, I'm looking for Camp Fuller.
Maybe it had more bedrooms or something.
Maybe it did have more bedrooms. Okay, yeah. And so, I mean, now obviously, you're not gonna probably use any of these here, right? We're gonna try to keep it in as close as possible. But if, as you kind of go in and out, it's gonna show you. And then down here, you're gonna have the list of them. So, you can now go through these down here, and then you can just choose whether or not you're going to add it into your comp list. So if you're going down this way here, you can also, I think you can, I'm sorry, I wonder if I can just sort these down here. You can sort them, okay. So let's just go through, I wanna find these 3 that it shows. So we want 678 Kettle Pond. one's for sale. So you can see, here's those little check boxes, right? So it's saying that it actually used that in the RVN. So that little star there. So you can just click here and then you can add these too. Now, even though it showed us this one here, there's no little star, so that one was not included. But if you wanted to, you can include that one. Now these are ones that are all active. This one is pending. But looking up here at the close, and as you can see, there's not a lot of stuff for this one that actually closed right around there. So you're gonna go through these and look at them and say, it's gonna tell you how far away it is from the subject property. And then it's gonna tell you when it closed, and it's gonna tell you what the closed price was. It's gonna tell you the price per square footage, it's gonna give you number of square feet, and beds and baths.
So I'm assuming in a densely populated analysis, you probably just use like 2 or 3 of the closest.
Yeah, and so a
Right.
lot of times what I do, honestly, especially as when I was starting to learn this, because it only went up to 8-1, there might have been a couple of properties, we're now at the middle of the month, today's the 17th. So there might have been properties that closed maybe outside of that aren't in here. So a lot of times I'll just go into MLS really quickly and I'll just do like a little radius search. I'll make sure that properties I really want to use are in here, because there's a little handy tool up here where you can say, you know what, I'm gonna add a known property, and then in here I'll just copy and paste those MLS IDs to make sure the comps I really want to use are in there, right?
And it'll just pop in.
It'll just pop it in. If it's already in the list, it'll tell you it's already in the list, and if it's not, it'll just automatically add it in there for you, okay? And take, for example, if it's a property like we're talking about where there's not a lot of comps around it and we might have to go outside the area for that, it's not gonna pick it up. So again, you can go back and use MLS a little bit just to make sure all of those are in there. Okay, so I'm just gonna pick a couple just for time's sake here. So if you go back to, so then you just have to go back to clicking on that other button there for it to bring your list back up. So let's see, I know a lot of these are like completely over on the other side there, but just for conversation's sakes, I'm just gonna add a couple. I'm just gonna just grab the first 3 just so I can show you. So once you choose your comps over here, I'm then going to update the valuation. Okay, and so now you can see that it is now, it's just telling you what the average is, right? So, and I'm gonna show you how to remove one, because we obviously want that 181 one out of there. So now you're gonna go into adjust comps, but here's that range we talked about, and then it's just gonna give you the average. So when you click on adjust comps, now you're gonna come in here, here's that slider bar that's available in this option, and you are simply just going to, you can do it one step at a time here, right? And so it gives you, each little click is it adds 5%, so you have a total of 20% better, 20% worse, okay? So you can choose. A couple of the other things is if you click bigger photos, it will make these photos all bigger for you. So now you're like, you know what, I'm gonna actually go through this property and I wanna see what it looks like inside compared to the one that I am talking about. So you can go through here and you can actually look at them, so then you can make your decision. You can also go through, and we're like, oh God, that's not even a comp, right? You just, this little X here, you can just click it and it will take it away. Okay, so if you clicked on something mistakenly, or after you looked at the pictures, you're like, that is really not a comp, I'm just gonna get rid of it.
Did you click on the picture, then the X?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, this little X here is just gonna take the column right out. So you're just gonna click the X. Yep, you're just gonna click that X is gonna take that whole property away. Now you can also, you can change the order of these. So you can just go through and you can decide what order you want them in. If you want maybe to bring highlight to one over the other.
I guess what concerns me is why are we looking at a Narragansett property? There's nothing else there. Shouldn't
I
it
just
all
pulled in 3, only
Okay.
because I just want, for the essence of time, I just clicked the first 3. So that way, I didn't really have time to kind of really hone in deeply to see what I wanted for comps. I'm just trying to show you how the system works.
This is for demonstration purposes only.
Demonstration purposes only, that's my disclaimer. Okay, so yeah, you're gonna pretend that these are all right around this property, or you really have chosen these comps with care. Okay, so at the end of the day, so now you're gonna go through and you're gonna kind of do your little sliders, right, on all of these. And again, I am just clicking, I'm not putting really any thought process into this. And up here is where you have your previous and your next. So it's gonna show you your subject property plus the 3 comps. If you have more than 3, you're gonna go to next, and it's gonna show you the next. You can have as many as you want. You can add in 6, 7, 8. You can have 2, 3, whatever you deem to be the proper data. Same thing as if you were looking in MLS, right? It's the same. It's going to you're doing it around the same approach. Okay. So like if you were in MLS and you were choosing the comps to do your data analysis, it's the same thing. I'm going to show you really though how the extra steps you get in here of really to value the weight and make them like kind. This is where RPR comes into effect. But you're going to choose your comps in the same manner you would if you were just pulling these out of MLS. Okay. Okay. So after you hit all of your sliders, this number is going to have changed a little bit just based on those comps. And it's going to tell you based on what you made better, what you made worse, that it made an adjustment, it granted an extra $9,700 towards this property, just based on what choices you made. So then you're just simply going to say update, valuation, and close. And now from here, the next step is going to be to create the report. So when you hit create report, it opens up the reporting tool. It's going to automatically select that you're doing a seller's report here. But yet you can choose to do a property report if you want to, right? If this is for a buyer, maybe you choose to do a property report. You can do a mini property report. To see what any of these look like, you're just going to say view sample, and it's going to, you can scroll right through, and it's going to show you all of the data that's going to be included in the report.
Do you have one that you prefer? Because sometimes too much information gets.
Yeah, I mean,
you work with 20 pages.
I'm either using the property report. If it is a listing presentation, I might use the seller's report. I'm going to show you the valuation workbook, and that's the one that's going to be a little bit more detailed. So I'm going to show you that one too. But a lot of times I'll also go through here. You can click customize. This is going to tell you every page that's going to be in that report. So if you like this report, but there's maybe 3 pieces of paper, you're like, I don't need that. You can just uncheck them, and it's not going to be included. Okay, and at the end of the day, when the report runs, right, it's going to just show you the placeholder with, whatever, right. Make sure that your profile is filled out, and so that way when your reports run, this is what they're going to see. They're going to see your picture. They're going to see your information. So make sure if you're going into RPR for the first time, or maybe you haven't done it in the past, make sure that you are filling out your profile.
Where do I click to take out everything? Because there's a page that comes up that shows all the listings in North Kingston.
Yeah, so when you go through, right, all of a sudden it just says, I've decided I'm going to show you all of these
Right, so you've got 28,000 pages.
So you can go down, and that is going to be, and it might be in the seller's report.
Because I click and I go, no, that's not it. I click, no, that's not it.
Is that why we have no paper in the office?
That's why.
That's why, yeah,
My
okay.
secret's out.
Okay, so that was going to be, then let me go down, so in sellers, I think maybe here
I
in
think it's a
seller's
seller's,
report. And then when you say, when you do customize, yes, I know, I usually, if I open it up like in my PDF browser, I just start deleting them out of there, but
Yes, I do too.
you can come down here, and it's going to be recent market activity. So here, market activity, this is where it is. So you're gonna uncheck all of those.
Okay.
Okay, it's gonna keep your comps in there.
All right.
But it's gonna uncheck all the ones that it self-chose for you, where you're like, this has nothing to do with the property that I'm trying to, yes.
Thank you.
So you just uncheck them right from there. And then when you run the reports, right, then all of your reports are going to be up here. And then you can just kind of click on them. So these are like different reports that, that I have done. So it's gonna save them. If you also go under reports, you can go in, and again, this is just to get you to that reporting tool. But all your reports are gonna be right at the top of the screen. And you can choose to email it directly, you can choose to have it just sit here and download it as a PDF. Okay, so the last thing I'm gonna go back and show you is, okay, let's go back here. So now the sales comparison. Now, you're gonna get this little box up that says, if you're an appraiser, you can put your appraiser license number in here, right? If I'm not, so then you're just gonna say, skip this. Again, it's gonna make you go through, right? So it's gonna say, okay, confirm your facts. Great, everything's right. It's going to say find comps. Now, if you did the sales comparison approach, right, say maybe you're gonna do the sales comparison, see what it comes out, and you're like, you know what, I wanna get a little nitty gritty and I really wanna put those valuations in. When you come in here, it's gonna ask you, it's not gonna make you go out and choose comps again, it's gonna ask you, do you wanna copy the comps that you chose from the comparative analysis? So you can choose to say yes, and again, demo purposes only. So now your comps are all those same comps are gonna be in there, you don't have to go through and do the search again and select them all again, they're all gonna be in there. And then you can go in here, and then now, this looks a little different, right? So there's no slider here. Instead, you're gonna have all of these boxes. And as you go through, this one says, okay, total rooms, this one's 9 rooms, right? So you can give it a value if you want. Bedrooms 3, okay, that's the same. This one has 4. So in this one, you're gonna maybe make a weighted adjustment. So there's a formula, it's CBS and SBC is the way that because it can be a little confusing if you're supposed to add value or you're supposed to subtract value. This is like an appraisal thing, right? So I went in that class, if I remember correctly. So SBC is, it's SBA, so subject better add. So if the subject is better, you're going to add money here. And then CBS, comp, better, subtract. Okay, so in this case here for bedrooms, the comp is better, right? There's 4 bedrooms versus 3 bedrooms. So here, comp, better, subtract. So say we're gonna give a value of, I don't know, $5,000,
Yeah, just subtract 5,000.
You're subtracting $5,000, you're not adding $5,000.
Right.
Okay, so you wanna remember those 2 acronyms to know if you're supposed to add money to the comp or you're gonna subtract money to the comp.
I understood if it's nicer, I take it off. If it's better, if it's worse, I get it.
Right, yep, right.
Yeah.
You can use
It's the
anything,
opposite.
it's the opposite of what you
It
think,
stands
right?
out.
It's the opposite.
It
You might
stands
think like,
out.
oh, this one's better, I'm gonna add $5,000 to the value of this one. No, you're adding and subtracting value to the subject. So it's always based on the subject. So if the comp is better, you're gonna subtract that money from the subject. If the subject is better, you wanna add value, okay? And it'll give it to you like in green. So I was trying to see maybe a point. They also will give you, if the house is, I think they might give you 10 or 20% of living area. So there's a lot of rules as far as, to get these comps weighted. Because if you're going down this path, you want to go down the path fully, right? You don't want to just pick and say, well, I'm only going to give value to the bedrooms. You should go through and give values, check to see if there's a garage, is there any finished space in the basement, how big is the yard? And again, it's based on really how an appraiser would do it. So they do give you certain parameters, and then if they're grossly outside of those, that's when you start adding, okay, or subtracting. So if you want to do this, it's great, you can get really detailed with it, but just have a conversation with your appraiser and say, hey, can you just give me a little cheat sheet? Can I ask you a question of really how much you're giving value to? And you might be able to find it online, but an appraiser might say, yeah, if it's an extra bedroom, give it this. If it's a half bath, give it that. If it's a full bath, give it this, etc. Okay? So again, I'm just gonna go down to the bottom here. Once you're finished with everything, and here's where there's that, the comp weighting on here, right? So it's gonna tell you what it's, how you're weighting them, and so you can change these if you want to. It has to equal 100%. You can say weight equally, or you can do an auto weight. If you do auto weight, it's going to calculate it for you. Okay? And again, just clicking. So then you're going to say update. It's going to do all of its magic. And then it's going to say, okay, now we're ready to create the report. And now if you notice, it's gonna go down here and it's gonna do the valuation workbook, because it's gonna illustrate all of those changes that you made in there. It's gonna include those pages. And again, you know, you can customize this and get rid of all of that extra data if it's doing all of that extra data in here. And then you just run your report. Down here you choose whether or not you want to just send it directly to them, or you want to just display it now, which is what I usually do. I download it as a PDF and then I email it to them with a note from me. Okay, questions?
I have one.
Sure.
In the comps that the RPR uses, on the closed sales, is there a certain period of time that they're using?
So you can choose that. So when we hit that search criteria, you can say how long you want them off the market. So I just did a year, but you can say 6 months, you can say 3 months. So you can choose that, what you usually choose for your parameters.
But if I'm just thinking about the appraiser though, doesn't the appraiser have a certain period of time that he uses for comps?
I think appraisers typically like to keep them within 6 months if they can.
Okay.
I think as realtors, a lot of times we might try to go back a year, but I know in this market now, because a year was a lot different from where we are now, so I'll try to keep it at 6 months, but if there's not a lot of comps, I usually don't ever go over a year, because then it's just, I don't think an appraiser would ever even consider those, right? Because a lot of times, you know, as listing agents, we're, you know, I'll meet the appraiser at the house and I'll make sure I want him to have the comps that I chose to see my justification for the price. So if you're handing him things that are really old, I mean, they're not going to use them. So I usually try to keep them within a year, but I think they try to get as close to 6 months as they can. Any other questions? How did you find this useful?
Yes.
Yeah, and so like I said, you know, go in and play with it. Go in and bring up other properties, do your property, like go out and just kind of play with it, so that way you really kind of understand that data and you feel comfortable, you know, doing it. But you know, those reports are super professional, and it's something that you can be super proud of when you're giving it to somebody. It shows that you put a lot of thought into valuing their property. So thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. We'll be back next week for our
Next
third
Thursday.
and final one.
Please register for next week's class. Thank you all very much. Please fill out the survey. And thank you very much.